be going to the
I'll be taking my talents to BYU.
I decided to commit to Duke University.
I'm going to be committing to North Carolina. Go Tar Heels.
I'm going to continue my academic and athletic career at the University of Connecticut.
Michigan State University.
I'll be committing to the University of Arkansas.
It is National Signing Day, and before we get going with this show, we want to give a big thank you to all the top prospects in the country who have trusted us with the opportunity to host their special announcements in recent months, all leading up to signing day today. It has been a true privilege to host so many of the very best prospects in the country. And with that, welcome to our special signing day show. I'm your host, Adam Finkelstein. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. We are going to break down everything there is to know about today's signing day. And in order to help me do that, I'm going to welcome in Eric Bossi and Travis Branham to today's show. Fellas, welcome
what's happening, Adam?
to signing day special. All right, before we get going here, guys, I want to what we're going to do is we are going to go through our top 30 schools in the class rankings, and then we are going to break down the ones that we are especially interested in for whatever reason. Let's start with a look at the top 10, and it's no surprise. We know the team that's on top right now, and that is Duke. We're going to talk about them more in a moment. UConn, the two-time defending national champions, seems fairly appropriate that they are sitting at number 2 on the class ranking list, followed by Kentucky, Notre Dame, Michigan, LSU, SMU, Iowa State, Mississippi State, and Northwestern. Those are the top 10 recruiting classes in the country today on early signing day. Bossi, I'm going to start with you. Notre Dame and Micah Shrewsbury have done work on the transfer portal and the recruiting world so far. What is it about this group that makes them so special?
Well, certainly the transfer portal is probably coming down the road, but what makes it so special is how about going and getting a 5-star like Jalen Haralson, an instant impact guy who's going to play a variety of positions for him. They've sold him on being a big point guard. He's certainly got some of the skills to do that at 6'7". He can handle, he can pass. They beat out some big time schools, heavy, in-state Indiana, Michigan State, schools like that. So he's great, but he's not it. I think they've built a team or a group of recruits around him that really fits with him. Ryder Frost is one of the best shooters in the country coming out of New England. He's got size at 6'6". Tommy Oneman is a big man from the Dakotas who he takes up space. He's got soft touch. He didn't really get seen that much. Travis and I have both seen him a little bit, but he's kind of a sneaky good guy. And then I think the guy that's the real X factor is Brady Kohler in this class. He's pushing 6'9". He can really, really move. Now, he had some troubles shooting the ball during the summer, but he shoots a very, very clean ball. And I think he's a guy who's going to figure it out when he gets to college.
Yeah, I love the fact that they have constructed this roster around Jalen Haralson, who's going to play a very Jalen Pickett type role for Micah Shrewsbury. Jalen Pickett, of course, starred at Penn State. Bossi, before I go to Trav, I want to ask you about one guy. There is rumors this class may not be done yet. Nate Ament, one of the best players available in the class of 2025. Did the Irish have a shot here?
Absolutely, 100%. Now, it's going to get interesting to see how much they can compete on the NIL front and just how big that number gets. But if the NIL is something within reason, within doing, they've got a lot going for their favor and have been a school that we've all been talking about as a behind-the-scenes kind of low-key school that might surprise you as having a real deep shot with him. He likes a lot what they've got going on. He's been to campus, and they've got some things going in their favor there.
Travis, I'm going to go to you. Obviously, the state of Kentucky and BBN is rejoicing today after last night's win over Duke at the Champions Classic. But the truth is, they've been in a celebratory mode for months now because Mark Pope has been getting it done on the recruiting trail. If there were questions about whether he would be able to carry on the power of the Kentucky brand, I think they have been answered. What can you say about this class so far?
Yeah, when Mark Pope took over this job, he had to fill this roster out of the transfer portal. And so he wasn't able to bring in the high school talent that John Calipari was previously able to reel in. So now this 2025 class is his first opportunity with that. And thankfully, he had two homegrown kids to kind of really hone in on, Jasper Johnson and Malachi Moreno. And obviously, many people would assume like those kids were shoo-ins to be Wildcats. But to be honest with you, while Malachi was that way, Jasper was a real fight. And so they were able to go out and get him on the recruiting trail and beat out Alabama and North Carolina in the end. And when you look at Jasper, you look at Malachi Moreno, and also most recently, Cayden Lewis, you're getting three guys, and based on what we saw last night, that are going to fit in very well into this system. Malachi Moreno, a skilled, nearing 7-foot big man that can impact the game in a variety of ways. He's really improved over the past few months. Jasper, a potent scorer and shot maker out on the perimeter, plays with a tremendous amount of confidence. His foot never comes off the gas pedal. And with the Cayden Lewis, he's going to be the guy to run the show moving forward when Lamont Butler and Kirk Creasa move on. He may be slightly undersized, but this kid has a ton of game, a guy that you can give the ball to, and he's going to be able to go out and create shots not only for himself, but for those around him.
And of course, the number one recruiting class in the country, once again, John Shire doing his thing. It began by landing the Boozer twins. And again, we've talked about this. Miami looked like they were in the driver's seat for a long time, but Duke came back and got it done. And what have they done since then? They added what I believe are two ideal pieces around the twins in Nick Khamenia and Shelton Henderson. You put those guys together, the collective skill of that group and the compatibility, when you think about Khamenia's IQ and ability to facilitate, combined with Henderson's physicality and ability to defend, the Boozers' unprecedented history of winning, and then Cam being able to step right into that role that Cooper Flagg currently plays. Remember, we are talking about a Duke squad right now that is starting 3 freshmen and expecting wholesale changes. They've got 4 players coming to town next year that are all going to be able to step into that lineup, make immediate contributions, and John Shire, once again, leaving no doubt that he is at the top of his game on the recruiting trail. All right, let's take a look at these extended class rankings now as we go beyond the top 10, see what it looks like. Beginning at number 11, Georgia, followed by Butler. Marquette, a team that did a lot of work early on the recruiting trail. Arkansas, John Calipari has a pair of 5-star guards committed to him. Penn State, Syracuse, South Carolina, Kansas, Clemson, and Rutgers. And fellas, before we start breaking these down, I think it's important to point out that class rankings are generated by a mathematical formula that don't necessarily take into account the quality of the fit. That's why we're going to be able to kind of expand a little bit on why we are particularly high on certain groups. So, Trav, I'm going to start with you here. You like this Clemson class. Tell me what it is about this group that makes you optimistic.
Yeah, they have a 3-man class. The first commitment they were able to land was Trent Steinauer, a 6'9" forward that can step out and make shots on the perimeter. Now, he's a guy that's going to need time to really develop and fill out. His body isn't quite there yet. So when he gets into that into the Clemson program, just honing in and focusing on the weight room is going to be his first and foremost priority. And then you got Chase Thompson, a versatile forward out of Minnesota, a guy that can also step out onto the perimeter and make shots, but he's a very strong, kind of a country strong forward that's going to be able to rebound his arrow, plays with a high IQ and feel for the game. But the kid that excites me the most is Zach Foster, a guy that we've had ranked for some time. And if you've been following us on the show, he's a guy that I've brought up and talked about regularly. He's a high upside guard that is committed to this process. When he committed to Clemson, Brad Brownell really pitched him on just coming in. You're going to focus on the weight room, and we're going to develop your skill set on the court. And then in maybe a year, maybe 2 years, he's really going to take off. And so he's the guy that excites me the most. And this is a class where Brad Brownell, he continues to succeed, especially showcase how he can develop players and ultimately win in the ACC.
And Bossi, it may be a new zip code, but John Calipari showing that he continues to do what he has done at every previous stop, whether that be Kentucky or even Memphis before that, because he has the nation's top incoming backcourt at the moment. By the numbers, what do you make of this tandem?
Well, first of all, I think I'm getting a little bit of a cheat code here, being able to take Arkansas as the number 14 class. I think once all the other services update team rankings and the composite kind of settles out, we'll see that class move out because it's a class that while it's only a 2-man class for our 24/7 sports team-specific rankings, without the others factored in, they're our number 5 class. Man, what Kentucky fans were used to seeing out of John Calipari, Arkansas fans, here it comes. We are talking bucket getters, guys that can go and get theirs at a moment's notice. We're probably going to need a little bit of time to learn how to play with each other and to learn how to, maybe submit their will to the team sometimes versus having their foot on the gas pedal at all times. But man, I love Darius Acuff. That guy is just a pit bull of a point guard. I remember Frank Mason at Kansas a few years back, who was just a dynamic scorer and All-American. Well, I think Acuff is a lot like him, but he's probably about 3 inches taller and about 10, 15 pounds stronger coming into college. So you can imagine what that does comparing him to a guy who ended up a first-team All-American. And then with Meleek Thomas, I've been searching hard for a comparison for him, but I think I kind of he's like a juiced-up version of Deron Lamb, who played for Calipari at Kentucky. Maybe not quite as reliable an outside shooter, although he's streaky, but he's stronger. He's more athletic, and he can really go and get things off the dribble. I think while he's a guy that can make plays, playing him off the ball and just letting him be free as a scorer and not worry quite as much about making plays for others and decisions is going to really be beneficial for him.
All right, guys, the program that I want to shine a bit of a light on is Georgia, what Mike White and his staff have done there. We saw him really hit the recruiting trail hard last year with guys like Asa Newell, and they've done it again this year. They have 2 prospects that I think are clearly trending up in Kareem Stagg and Jackson McVeigh, potentially the front court of the future. McVeigh, a 7-footer who can dribble, pass, and shoot, got a really strong base in his lower body, and once that upper body catches up, his best basketball clearly still in front of him. And then Kareem Stagg, this is a power player who has committed himself to changing his body and expanding his skill set in the last 12 months or so, one of the fastest risers in the national class of 2025. And then you've got Jacob Wilkins, who has a significant upside, the son of Dominique Wilkins, and he is every bit as athletic as you would expect given those genes. I think you have 3 prospects that are all trending in the right direction, may not come in and make that immediate type of one-and-done splash, but could really grow into significant roles in future years for Georgia. I continue to like what Mike White and the staff are doing on the recruiting trail. All right, let's go back to those class rankings. We've talked about the top 20. Let's finish this list off and see what the top 30 looks like. At 21, we've got Darian DeVries in West Virginia landing a commitment just the other day. Florida's at number 22. North Carolina has a new backcourt, and they are in at 23. Georgia Tech at 24. Ole Miss at 25, followed by Miami, Alabama, Providence, Michigan State, and Washington. And again, we're going to emphasize these numbers are according to a mathematical formula, and it is not our personal opinion. So we are going to highlight the classes that we are high on. So guys, within that group, who do we highlight as somebody that we are particularly high on? I'm going to start this one, and I'm going to go with Michigan State. What stands out to me about this group is years ago, Tom Izzo prided himself on only recruiting the Midwest region. Well, they've expanded the scope of their geography. They've gone into the DMV, and they've got 2 immediate impact players. They've got Jordan Scott, a big wing, 6'7", clear shooting potential, clear defensive potential, excellent rebounding wing. His best days, without question, still ahead of him. And then you've got Cam Ward, who was one of the best scorers in the Nike EYBL this year. Absolutely gets rave reviews for the character. And when you look at that Michigan State front court and the guys they could be losing next season, Ward is somebody who can come in, play immediate minutes. And again, this is a duo that I think a couple years down the road, you could find them both being pillars of what this Michigan State program could be down the road. So I like what the Spartans have done in this class, even if they don't have one of those prototypical one-and-dones just yet. Bossi, I'm going to go to you. You like what Nate Oates has done so far. Tell me why.
Fit, and more fit. Kids and parents ask me all the time, what should be the number one thing looking for in a college program? And I know with NIL, it kind of clouds things up. At the end of the day, it's all about fit and going to a place who can show success with players who play like you. And with London Jemison and Marion, we're talking about 2 guys that are kind of multi-positional guys that can play anywhere depending on Oates wants to run the lineup, from the 2, the 3, the 4, or even a 5 for someone like London Jemison in a really small ball lineup. They can both step out and shoot a little bit. With Jemison, he's got kind of trending towards perhaps being a 3-and-D kind of guy. I really like where he's going with the corner jumper. And then Amari Allen has a chance to be like a jumbo initiator for them. Where he's at his best is putting the ball on the floor, getting into the middle of the paint, getting into the high post, and making decisions for others. And he's also developed into a pretty good shooter too. So you're talking about two guys that are in that 6'7" to 6'8" range. You can play around at multiple positions. They're relatively elastic athletes. They both have real shooting potential and are just super versatile. And if you look at Alabama and what they've done, they fit right into the blueprint.
All right, Travis, Hubert Davis knew coming into this recruiting class that the backcourt was the top priority. He has two guards, and you're pretty happy with what they've got so far.
Yeah, no question about it. You're getting two different style guards. Both can play on and off the ball, but Derek Dixon is a high floor combo that can come in and impact right away with just how well he shoots the basketball. He's the guy that's played at the highest levels of high school basketball, obviously playing in the Nike EYBL with Team Takeover this summer, but playing with Gonzaga up in D.C. He is playing against some of the top competition and getting some of the best coaching. So he's going to be a guy that's going to come in, just be able to plug and play right away with his ability to make shots and facilitate around the perimeter. And then Isaiah Denis, he is one of the guys that we've had ranked and been very excited about for some time. And his best days are still ahead of him. A 6'4", 6'5" guard that can really score it, particularly by way of making shots from three. But as he continues to get stronger, he has a very, very lean frame. He's a promising athlete. He's got speed, has a burst to get downhill. But as he polishes his handle and gets a lot stronger, I think there's new elements to his game that he can tap into. So the backcourt that Hubert Davis has brought in is looking promising for the future.
All right, that is it for the top 30 classes on National Signing Day, but there is much more coverage over on 247sports.com. You've got content from Travis Branham, Eric Bossi, as well as the rest of the team. Visit there right now, 247sports.com, for wall-to-wall team coverage, recruiting rankings, and transfer portal updates. All right, guys, today may be National Signing Day, but the next few days are going to be busy because the signing period goes on, and there's a number of commitments coming up, and many of them will be on our network. Let's talk first about Kingston Flemings, who is set to announce tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the 24/7 Sports Channel. We are talking about one of the most athletic and dynamic lead guards in the country. This guy has pace. He's got stop-and-go ability. He's got ridiculous athleticism. This guy dunks on the way up. Down to two finalists in Houston and Texas Tech. It is going to be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow on the channel. Bossi, I know you've been following this guy. What is at stake for these two local Texas teams?
Well, I think both of these teams are looking for a guy that they can plug in and count on to play, if not starters minutes, at least very significant minutes right away. So you're talking about, a clear need for both. So there's no, he's going to have to sit behind this guy here or behind this guy there. Like, there's room on both of those rosters for him to step in right away and play 25 to 30 minutes. And he's, like you said, he's a game-changing athlete, and he can score and he can pass. And I really think he's a guy that, as good as he already is, has a lot of untapped potential once he gets into a college and really adjusts to playing in a system that's going to be catered around him and where he'll have some shooters and some better bigs to finish things. So there's a lot riding on this one, and it has been an absolute heavyweight battle on this one. This is like Rocky and Ivan Drago. We're going into the 15th round. They've been in the snow, well, maybe not in the snow in Texas training, but they've been out doing their things, laying their final pitches, and it's going to be really fun to see who Kingston ultimately goes with.
All right. I love the analogy. Trav, let's talk about Kiyan Anthony. He is coming off the board on Friday, set to announce on his father's platform, down to two finalists in Syracuse and USC. Is this a little bit of like, do I go to dad's alma mater or do I go out to where my mom lives? I mean, it seems like it's a little bit of a competition here, but what are we expecting from Kiyan on Friday?
Yeah, I mean, it's become basically a rule of law in the state of recruiting that you never really bet against the father's alma mater, especially one where he is a legend and led the team to a national championship. So while, yes, there are ties to the Los Angeles area and USC, and he has definitely considered them throughout this process, I can't find myself to bet against the Syracuse Orange to ultimately pull this one out and get this 6'4", 6'5" score that just has such an advanced skill set when it comes to putting the ball in the hole. And just as you would expect, coming from a legendary scoring father that he's had.
Also on Friday, we are expecting a commitment from Davion Hannah, who is one of the most potent scoring guards, another big-time athlete who really excels getting to the rim. Bossi, what can you tell us about where his process is right now and who the finalists are going into Friday's decision?
Yeah, so you've got Alabama, you've got Ohio State, you've got Cincinnati and Missouri. I think coming down these last couple of weeks, it's really been a battle probably between Alabama and Missouri. He's taken additional visits to each of them, and now it's just a matter of finding out which one's going to be the best fit. He's a guy who puts it on the floor, is athletic, gets to his spots. There's room for improvement with the jump shot, but we're just talking about a high upside utility athlete that is going to be a good fit with either of those places and what they're trying to do.
And then on Sunday, right here on the 24/7 Sports Channel, we have Sebastian Williams-Adams from the JL3 Elite EYBL program set to announce his commitment. I'll tell you what, guys, I think he is one of the most versatile two-way forwards in the country. He defends multiple positions. He's really kind of embraced playing an efficient inside-out style on the offensive end of the floor. I'm super high on what he could be down the road, especially for teams who like to switch things defensively and have versatility on the defensive end of the floor. Trav, what do we know about his recruitment as he prepares for this big announcement Sunday on the 24/7 Sports Channel?
Yeah, he's down to just 4 schools, but in recent weeks, this has really been a battle between just 2 programs. That has Auburn and Oklahoma State. And there's been a lot of back and forth leading up to this ultimate. I think there's a significant pull to both programs. And so, I mean, it's one of those things where it's kind of a toss-up in the end, and we'll see who ultimately pulls it out.
All right, and I don't want to play spoiler here, fellas, but you're going to want to keep it locked on the 24/7 Sports Channel because we've told you about 4 commitments coming up in the next 4 days. There may be a 5th, and it may be happening on the 24/7 Sports Channel. You know where to find us. We are the home of the biggest commitments in high school, college basketball, and football. You're going to want to keep it locked right here for the rest of the week, the 24/7 Sports Channel. Make sure you subscribe, and I might suggest clicking that notification bell. All right, fellas, last but not least, we have seen a variety, the vast majority of the nationally ranked prospects in the country already come off the board in anticipation of signing week, but there's still a number of top 10 prospects left uncommitted. And obviously, we're going to begin that with the number 1 overall prospect, AJ Dybantsa. Bossi, you have been at the forefront of recruiting on his process from start to finish. You've been plagiarized more in the last 2 months than anybody on the internet when it comes to recruiting his recruitment. What is the latest with AJ and what we can expect in the coming weeks or months?
The latest is that AJ and his father have both confirmed that he won't be signing early, but I don't think we're going to have to wait too far past the early signing period for him to have his decision. It could be as early as the end of this month, but I would bet more on early December than maybe mid-December as the very latest for his decision the way things are going. He's got a final 7. Not all 7 are involved. I think we're looking at Alabama, BYU, Kansas State, and North Carolina at this point. He's obviously been to all of them officially, and now they're in this point where they're watching closely to see, okay, you've pitched me on playing a certain way. You've pitched me on this being the need. Let's see if that's actually what I see when I watch you. And I know everyone talks about NIL, and there's been some crazy NIL speculation around AJ. And yes, he's going to get a nice bag. There's no question about that. The number 1 player in the country who is extremely marketable is going to do pretty well NIL. But all these places are being very competitive in that space. So now it's a matter of really where does he see himself fitting the best? And I think it's one where there's been rampant speculation about BYU being the team in the front, and there's certainly a major factor on it, but I don't think this thing has ever been nearly as done as maybe people have thought it to be, and it's a lot closer than people think coming down the stretch.
I would tell you what, if Kansas State is out of this, they don't know it. Jerome Tang was there full staff in Boston last week, as was Nate Oates and Preston Murphy. North Carolina had an assistant coach there as well. That was AJ Dybantsa's homecoming back in Boston. Those 4 schools all represented. Certainly everyone appears to believe they are still in for this. Trav, I want to ask you about Peat. There has arguably not been many players in the class who have been as consistently productive, especially in FIBA play with USA Basketball. This guy has gotten it done for all 4 years of his high school career. As we start to look down potentially the end of his recruitment, what is the latest?
Yeah, he has been one of the toughest. This has been one of the toughest recruitments to kind of figure out at this point. He was one, go back a month or 6 weeks, and we're fully anticipating a decision out of him by this moment. But a decision has yet to come. And based on what I've been hearing, we are not anticipating a decision out of him during this early signing period, and that this thing will continue to drag out beyond. But I don't think we'll have to wait too much longer after the early signing period closes. There's been some movement in his leaderboard. Obviously, Duke was one that was heavily speculated, but that visit was canceled and they are no longer in contention. So we are now looking the closest at Arizona, Houston, Baylor, and there's been some buzz that Texas could be a sleeper here. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that one. There's obviously a draw to potentially stay home and play for Tommy Lloyd in the Arizona Wildcats, who have made him a absolute top priority from day one. But it's going to be a fight all the way to the end, as Houston has done a tremendous job with him. Baylor has been in there very deeply, but there's some buzz going around that they may be sliding down the leaderboard down into third, but they are not out of it yet.
All right, Bossi, Mikel Brown is maybe the best pure point guard in the class, but certainly the best point guard left on the board. You and I saw him just a few weeks ago playing with his new DME team at the Border League. And again, this is another prospect that you have been at the forefront of reporting on. What is the latest with Mikel Brown?
So he's not going to sign early and had initially planned to wait all the way through the spring, but I don't think he's going to end up waiting that long. I think that we could maybe see something, at least during the season, whether that be mid-January or somewhere like that. I don't see this going to March or April. So it is going to be a little bit of a shorter timeline on this. There's been a lot about buzz about Louisville. They're certainly in the mix. Alabama and Ole Miss have been in there. Georgia Tech is still doing a lot of contact. Kentucky was really pushing hard early. I think maybe they're not quite as in there as much now. But, I think Louisville is certainly a team to watch. But, things aren't done until they're done. I believe he'll take another visit to them in maybe December. But the big news here is that wherever he ends up, we aren't looking at having to wait all the way until March or April for him to decide.
All right, fellas, I want to ask you both about Caleb Wilson because, Travis, you were championing his cause early on. Bossi, you've been in to see him practice this fall. But, Trav, I want to go back to you because it seems his recruitment has been back and forth a little bit, where Arkansas looked like the clear leader this summer, yet we don't have a decision here on National Signing Day. What do people need to know about this five-star forward and his process at this point?
Yeah, John Calipari entered this when he was at Kentucky as the favorite to land Caleb Wilson. And obviously John Calipari moved to Arkansas, and Caleb was supposed to visit Arkansas just a couple of weeks ago, but he postponed the visit. So now it is supposed to be back on for this weekend. So he's got a massive weekend ahead of him. And the other teams that I'm hearing are mostly involved are North Carolina, a team that he took another unofficial visit to this fall. And they have been picking up some serious traction and buzz around him in his recruitment. But so has Kentucky. Mark Pope really prioritized him this summer after getting the job and has reestablished Kentucky as a serious contender in this recruitment. And now, depending on the source you talk to, you kind of get a different answer on who people think leads as of this moment. The consistent two right now are North Carolina and Kentucky. But I will say Ohio State could be a sleeper here. Jake Diebler and the Buckeyes are involved. They just got him on an official visit just a couple of weeks ago, and they are remaining in contact. And there's some connections to Caleb Wilson that could ultimately play into their favor.
Bossi, I want to ask you about Chris Cenac here. Not many big men, maybe not many players, have helped themselves more in the last 6 months. He had a terrific summer. Been one of the breakout players in that Puma Pro 16 circuit, and now he's got a long list of potential suitors. Is there a time frame or any favorites that have emerged yet?
Yeah, a couple. One, he's another one who had been committed to playing out the entire process and maybe waiting until March or April. He is going to be coming off the board much earlier than that. if any of these guys we're talking about could sneak in a decision by the end of the early signing period, he might be the guy. What's interesting is I think all along we kind of just assumed that at the end of the day he would end up back home at LSU. And while Matt McMahon and his staff are certainly very formidable in this recruitment and going to be there till the end, it is not a sure thing that he ends up at LSU. Houston has made a major push lately. They had him on an unofficial visit in the summer. They got him back officially, and they just recently got another unofficial visit from him. So they've had him on campus 3 times on a 4 or 5 month span. That is significant when you're recruiting someone. And also, over the really heard a lot of buzz about Tennessee emerging as a real threat in all this. You've still got Arkansas lingering around there, but Tennessee, Houston, and LSU, at least as of today, seem to be the programs getting the most buzz. And again, he's someone that if he's not done in the next week, I could see him maybe being done in the next 2 to 3 weeks with his decision.
All right, everybody. That is the 24/7 Sports early signing period, National Signing Day show. For much more, you're going to want to visit 247sports.com. Travis, Bossi, Deshaun, and Brandon all have content there. 247sports.com, wall-to-wall team coverage, recruiting rankings, transfer portal updates, and don't forget, we are on commitment watch for the next 4 or 5 days with no less than 5 nationally ranked prospects expected to come off the board, many of them right here on the 24/7 Sports channel. So we'll see you back here real soon.